After having some very close near misses with my lathe, I decided to buy a DRO for internal threading. The one I chose came in two packages. The first package I received within about 10 days, and then nothing, and then nothing. And it turned out that the second package with the glass rods was actually sitting in customs, and customs are the shipper. No one told me about this, and it sat there for a while until I figured it out and got a hold of them and paid the duty to get it into Canada. So the first thing I did, as you can see there, is mounted the DRO, as I did not have the glass slides or for this thing. Um, Works great so far. Just need the rest of it. Finally, they showed up. Um, Made it here. They did tell me, because I ordered it over, I believe, Chinese New Year, that they asked if they could ship it a little later. I said yes, and they said great, we'll send you a caliper to go with it. Surprisingly or shockingly, the caliper was not there. So the slide for here was actually pretty much made to fit. I was surprised. I did shim up underneath it on the carriage, so it wouldn't drag across the carriage every time it got used. And of course, I trimmed it down a little bit so it would have a better fit, and there wouldn't be a great big piece projected on the back. Um, by the way, this whole project took about 20 hours. I thought it would take me a little less, but I did have some issues, and I did break a few tools and some drill, at least one drill bit, and had to uh, had to figure out how to get that out without messing things up. And I also got to buy some new tools, which I always like doing. So cutting these was actually pretty simple. They were done with a hacksaw. So the vise I have is mounted on a cabinet with casters on the bottom. You'll see a little later on here. Well, basically now how much this shakes when you're cutting. Surprisingly, when I was cutting this, it did not appear to be shaking like this at all. So this is something I'm going to have to remedy by buying another stand, and when I get a welding table, having that vise mounted to the solid welding table. Though I'm also looking at putting the welding table on casters as well, so I can roll it. So I might not actually be fixing the problem that I think I'm fixing by moving this thing. And of course, there's a set of aluminum soft jaws in that vise that made it really nice, not scrunching down on that aluminum that I was cutting. Cutting this by hand, it seemed to take like forever, and there was two of them to do. Then, of course, just setting off the back, and you got to get in there and break off a little bit of that glass so you can put the cap back on. Which brings me up to one of the first tools I had to buy, and I gotta say, it's the smallest tap I've seen in my life. 1 mil, I think, was the bottom one, um, and also the drill bits for this. That is my drill with the chuck completely closed. So I ended up having to get a chuck for a rotary hand tool I have, and there is that tap, just super small. And I did actually break two of them. Luckily, I didn't break them inside here. I broke them on a piece of plastic or a piece of practice aluminum. To drill these, I decided just to drill using the end cap as a template instead of trying to mark it out and freehand it. And the drilling worked out pretty good. And of course, running that tiny little tap. I truly was surprised that it actually threaded that small, and that the screws that were going in actually screwed into there. No, there it is. All four holes drilled and tapped, ready for the cap to get put back on. And there are the two bits that I broke, or the two taps that I broke. Sorry about that. On the back of my lathe was nice and flush all the way across. I had watched videos of other people putting their DROs on, and they had to build them up because of part of the casting was different heights. I got really fortunate on mine. It was straight across the same height. So what I actually did is I went on the one side and attached the DRO to the lathe. Then on the other side, I built up with shims to get it as level as I could with a little small torpedo level, and then transfer punched the hole on that side here, and put the hole in for threading. When I was finally done with this, I managed to get only 2/10 of a thousand over the entire thing, running a gauge on top of it with a little bit of preload on it, and the cover goes on it. As you can see there, I cut a couple pieces of aluminum to make the bracket, and surprisingly enough, I got very little in the way of metal. But surprisingly enough, what I had in metal, I actually had two pieces that almost worked perfectly with very little work to needed to be done besides cut and drill them. And that's my stockpile of metal right there. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of different sizes. So I got very lucky on that one. Though at the same time, if I did need something a little smaller or whatever, I could have taken it to a bell sander and got it cut down quite a bit. Now, for the guide that goes across, I actually had to make a shim to take it out a little bit from where it would have anchored in, and this is the shim, and it's actually getting trimmed down a little bit. When I did put this on, I also shimmed underneath it, and you can see the shims right there. But I shimmed underneath it so that it wouldn't be dragging on the lathe as as everything was moving. Okay, well maybe I'll get the shims on there. Another thing I did is I took a square and I actually measured across to make sure I was flush. And as you can see right there, some more metal had to come off. It was dropping down. And I tried there too, and a little bit more metal had to come off there as well. And this is after I've did a little more grinding. As you can see, perfectly flush sitting on those shims. So now everything just needed to get drilled and attached. You can also see with this one how absolutely tight that it was in to get that reader down in there. But as you can see, it works. So it's just a matter of getting everything bolted in. And I did have to mess around with the jib is on that side, and I did have to mess around with the jib a bit and take it out when I broke a drill bit off. Once it was all together, the cover worked out just perfectly, and it's almost completely flat, laying there, and not causing any obstructions. And of course, on the back here, it had to be left open for that to actually extrude out as it was getting changed, as it was getting moved across the lathe. But you can see it's working. I do have to change this. Everything did come in negatives. I want to change it around so it goes into positives on that direction I'm going, and then negatives on the other direction coming back. And then if you can read it in the corner of the DRO, it actually says mill there. So I got to get that changed over to lathe as well. But that was just a matter of grabbing the instruction book and making some modifications to the unit. I also changed, it was very sensitive, and I also changed it up a bit. I think it's like 5/10,000ths now. When it was 1/10,000th, just a machine running would just have those numbers boggling and going all over the place. But that was about it. And like I say, about 20 hours to tear everything apart, build everything, screw up a few times, and get it back.